can't even remember what we were talking about before.
Mi
So
mix downs, mix
mixed
down
up.
anxiety.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So do you get anything like that or?
Uh, I don't know. The thing with mix downs is I'm not worried that something's going to be wrong. I'm
Mm,
certain.
mm,
So, I know for a fact I'm going to make a mistake. And I think that's just part of the process. And
yeah,
more and more, I'm getting more work like as a mixing engineer now, which
are
is like
you?
wonderful.
Mm,
And I'm so thankful for it. But like, sometimes I can get super paralyzed by this idea that like, yeah, like, oh, what if I do this wrong? Well, no, I can be confident that I'm going to listen back to this in like however long, let's say 6 months time, and
yeah,
go, I change a whole bunch of this. But at the same point, 90% of it is going to be good,
yeah,
and like
yeah,
there's just going to be those little details. And so what I've started doing weirdly is like doing stuff that's deliberately wrong,
yeah.
absolutely and intentionally wrong. Like, because you can have a mix I've found that's like super perfect and just sits there and like nothing moves and changes, but they're not the ones that make me like crazy excited for
Mm,
like whatever. If you listen to like if I listen to music that I love, like I was listening to a couple of Jimi Hendrix tunes the other day, like my missus on the train, and like, I had one earbud in and she had the other earbud on
right.
like some old school headphones, and like the version of the tune that I was hearing was like chaos because it was just the drums and
Yeah,
just
yeah,
verb,
yeah,
and there was
yeah,
nothing else. And then
yeah.
like she had all the lyrics and like the lead guitar was all over that side. And she's like, it sounds a bit weird. And I'm like, yes, because all the
Yes.
drums are here and all
Yeah.
the reverb is here. But like, and so I was like, like obviously that was a different time and the console might have just had, like LCR or whatever and that sort of stuff. So that's fine. But like, I just think, there was other records where like, some of the Beatles tunes, they just put the bass on the left.
Mate, they used to put. I was just gonna say the Beatles, because I'm a massive Beatles fan. My dad is a huge Beatles fan. My dad's a musician actually. He's a guitarist
Nice.
and singer. So I grew up with the Beatles and I listened to them a lot. And yeah, they really hard pan stuff, didn't they?
Yeah.
Literally like soundstage and stuff. So
And whereas like if you were to read like on like the tuition things or like engage with some like basic mixing stuff, they'd say to you, first thing, drums, like kick drum, bass has got to be mono because blah blah
mm,
blah blah blah. And
mm.
you're like, well, Beatles sold a lot of records and they didn't do any of that. So
Yeah.
like I understand where it's coming from, but like, you know, like at the same time, like it shouldn't ever impact the creativity. And so
No.
when it comes down to that, and I'm not saying like panning stuff hard left or hard right is a mistake at all. What I'm saying is like you'll look back on some of those decisions and be like, they're a bit
Yeah.
different to like what we do now. But at the
Yeah.
time, it was that, hey, this is
That was
what
the
we're
thing. Yeah.
yeah, we're just having fun with it. We're just doing
That's
what we're
what they
doing. And
did. But
yeah,
but
and so I think there's that room to be like, look, I'm just gonna do something now and commit. And like it's that thing again, having too many options or like leaving, like what I've found, and this was another thing I learned from that same podcast was like um about decisions that aren't made yet being a real problem. So like
yeah,
if you
yeah.
leave a decision open, like, I could do this, I could do that, maybe I'll come back to that later, that just really hampers progress. But if you choose, okay, I'm committing this, like fully burning the audio down, rendering
Yeah.
it, getting it like burnt to the track, well, that's what that is now. Like there's no going back. And like, and it really helps progress.
I was gonna say some of the tracks that I've written the quickest and my favorite tracks of mine have been those ones where I've just made that decision, render it down, delete the bounce above, the file above,
Yeah,
and that is it. There's nothing you can do about it.
yeah.
But then also some of the hardest mixdowns I've had have been those ones where I've done that and I need to try and sort it out. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, I've made a mess of this and I
Yeah.
can't go back.
And I think like one thing I learned from Phil um through production was like,
So Filth, right?
yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah,
Filth's
yeah.
a good mate of yours. So anyone that's listening, he's an old school friend, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We went to uni together. Yeah,
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 that's
yes,
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
uni.
And he always says to me, every now and again, I just put something too loud in the mix. It just does. And I'm like,
Mm,
I absolutely adore that. And I fully fully stole his idea. I do it all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And also the other thing you mentioned before about how that thing that just happens once in the tune,
Yeah.
that came from working with Phil as well. Just
Did it?
like,
Yeah.
yeah, just like we were working on something, and he was like, I can't remember. This was years ago now. This was
Mm.
really a long, long time ago. Like maybe such a long time ago. I can't even remember.
Yeah.
But what we did was we were like working on a bit, and like this little thing just happened once. And we had a real chat about whether it was like mad that this really great thing only happened once, or whether
Once,
it
yeah.
made it special.
Yeah.
And that was a thing that come out of that from years ago. And so I've kept that for a long time. Like, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
learned is like, don't be afraid to have things just happen once in a
Well,
tune.
no,
It's
because
for those
it,
multiple listens, you know.
yeah, and also it's something I do as well. I like to do it, and because the listener goes, "Oh, I like that. I want to hear it again," but they don't, and it kind of
Yeah.
it's almost like bit of a metaphor here, or it's almost like absence makes the heart grow stronger, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
you like hear this sound, and you're like, "I want to hear it again," and you don't get to hear it, and it makes you go back on the track.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? To hear it again, and it's kind of this is yeah,
I
it's
think I think as well, like as well, I've been really like starting, not I've not explored it enough yet, but I've been starting to be really kind of interested in like making the computer work in a way where when I press play, literally it will be different every single time.
right.
Like that's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
super
yeah.
interesting thing to me because
Mm.
linking it back to mix downs and stuff, what you're doing is you're just capturing one like I don't want to sound cheesy, but like one performance of that tune,
Hmm.
rather than that's all the tune's ever going to be and it's set in stone. It's more like this bounce of this is just this on this day. But if I bounced it another time, it will be slightly different tune. So
Yeah, yeah,
it kind of like that mindset really takes me away from it being like, oh, there's no way I'll capture the perfect version of this because one, I don't know if I'll press play at the right time. Like there's an element
yeah,
of randomness. So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like it can be really little from like things like I don't know, like setting an effect to not be like perfectly locked to the groove or the grid. It's just like kind of like you can work out the hertz cycles so they're perfectly in time. Of course you can, but like it's always running. So it
Yeah,
might like start one time at like the zero crossing of the wave, another
yeah,
time it might start at like the
yeah,
the crest of the
yeah.
wave.
So
And
it's not triggered basically.
like,
It,
yeah, it's
it's
just like a constant
yeah,
flowing effect.
yeah,
So it's going to kind of move in and out of like where it
mm,
was. And maybe one time the effect and that thing perfectly spoke to each other. And then another time there was more
yeah,
space or whatever. But
mm,
they're just little things like that. And then as well, I'm using Ableton more and more now. And you can do like like say for instance chance elements.
yeah,
So like say if I put the hi-hats in, like the main hat will obviously be static and stable, but
yeah.
then like the little 16 like shuffles and like little bits that come in underneath, you can give them just like a 50%
Loose,
chance of playing. So
right?
what it'll be is like sometimes they'll play
And sometimes they
50% of the
won't.
time they just
Yeah,
won't play. But I'll
mm,
put so many in that it'll just like dance and shuffle below the thing. So like if I liked it that time, I should have recorded it because it won't
yeah,
be the same next time.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I
That's cool.
love that idea of
Yeah,
like,
yeah. It's like
and
spontaneous, isn't it? Kind of
yeah,
like or sporadic, I should say. But that's kind of human as well, though, isn't it? It's like it's not robotic, and it's like
yeah,
that whole thing of not having stuff on grid. That is, it gives it more of a human feel,
yeah,
makes it more listenable. You know, you like your ears get fatigued at listening to something that is dead on grid, that is so robotically locked in place.
yeah,
TB actually, like something I've been doing more and more is putting stuff through the sampler and just swinging it. You
yeah,
know,
nice.
even if I've got a hat that's slightly swung or a shaker part or whatever, I'm kind of making the effort to put it in the sampler, chop it, and then just swing it myself randomly. You know, just to try out different kind of
Yeah,
different grids. But TB actually with his hats and his percussion, he turns quantize off. and he just randomly puts stuff like either side of the grid. So
Yeah,
it's not in any sort of formation attached to the grid or even like a swung grid, even if it's
yeah,
off grid, it's just purely his placement. Um,
yeah.
which is, I
That's
think that's pretty
nice.
cool. Yeah, yeah, that's really cool.
And bringing that down back to mix downs, like all of the things that we love we were just spoken about there, like one-off elements, like putting a thing a little bit too loud, chance things. They all are like what what could be considered imperfections because
Mm,
they're not perfectly to the grid and they don't happen like exactly in the right spot or whatever, which is fine. But like that's also what makes it great. So
yeah,
like some of like there's like a couple of tunes that I absolutely adore. Like I absolutely adore. Like there's this one, it was an old tune. I think it was by Groove Rider, and it was
mm,
years ago. It was called like "What Do You Do," and
yeah,
it had like this acoustic guitar, and I think I can't remember all about it. But anyway, like the only copy that I can find of it is like a vinyl that my pal had that was like a Dillinger remix of it, and that
yeah,
was the only like copy I could find. But the only like actual recording is like one that was like played through radio and
yeah,
then
yeah,
someone ripped it and burnt
yeah,
it
yeah,
down. But
yeah,
I still listen to that tune,
yeah,
even though it's like a compressed MP3 from
yeah, yeah.
YouTube that I ripped, that was recorded via radio that was on dub plate. So it wasn't like perfect quality. It had been through so many things. I still listen to it all the time because I
Well,
just
it's a
love it.
vibe. A vibe's a vibe at the end of the
Yeah.
day. So I
And
get what
so,
you're saying. I get what you're
yeah,
saying is it doesn't matter if it sounds like shit sonically, if it's a vibe and it
yeah,
grabs your attention and it has charm, it's still
yeah.
going to have
And
that same effect on your emotion.
yeah, and I mean, obviously, I'm still always aiming for high quality. I'm trying to get it the
Mm,
best I possibly can at the same time. So I do recognize that real tension between those two kind of mindsets that I've got, and
mm.
it doesn't they don't have to be like contradictory, but like the mix does serve the tune. Like
Yeah,
at the end of the day, like because you could technically and perfectly mix a tune and then kill the vibe as
yeah.
well. But
Mm,
like so then technically perfect isn't like a perfect mix anyway. It's like, what does this tune need? So one thing that I've done for a long time is if I'm really struggling with a tune, is just like you said before, like write down the three main problems with the thing before I even open the session. Like, so I'll be listening on like earbuds or like another room or another
yeah,
system, and then be like, right, I'm just gonna go in and fix these three things and bounce it and
yeah,
then like leave it for like 2 weeks,
yeah.
come back and just listen again and be like, okay, is there
That's
anything that needs fixing? And this time I'm just going to pick two things that need fixing and then boom, it's done. Leave it a week, one more time, fix one thing, and then that tune's done. Because you could be mixing down tunes for 10 years and being like, oh, if I
yeah,
just add 2 dB to that hi-hat, it will sound, sorry, 0.2 dB, it will sound better in that locate. And like, none of that really matters at the end of the day after like as long as like it's nice and serves the tune,
yeah, yeah,
well balanced, nice dynamics, nice stereo image, nice depth,
yeah,
boom,
yeah.
that's what that is.
No, no. I think that's one of the things that really kind of drew me in with your music when I first heard it because I didn't actually hear. I think the first thing I heard of yours was your EP when T first sent it to me. Obviously, you'd had releases before that because, I mean, you're quite a prolific producer. That's to say the least. I think you've written 2 albums since we last spoke. But we'll get onto that in a minute. When TB first sent me the Ocean and Fire EP, I was like,
Mm,
it resonated with me straight away. I was like, okay, this guy, and I remember saying to you, I remember messaging you saying, like, I really resonate with this because it's got that 90s charm about it. There's slight imperfections, but not imperfections that you would say is a technical thing. It just sounds, it's got that ruggedness to it, which is what I do, like my
nice.
tunes don't sound as clean as everyone else's, but for me, they've got that thing that makes you kind of one, remember them, a lot of them,
Yeah,
and two, like they kind of progress along the way. They don't, it's not, the drop isn't just the drop, things happen later on.
yeah,
Um, and just that ruggedness, that charm that tunes had in the 90s, that kind of characteristic that they had with the break. I mean, you use breaks a lot, which is what I also love. So yeah, that really resonated when I first heard your music, and I remember I was like, I need to work with this guy. Like I said to T,
That's
like I've got to
nice.
work with this guy because TB loves you, by the way. I told you that before, but he's like, he'll say that you're one of his favorite producers.
Oh man, that's nice.
Yeah, 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 because you have that thing, and there's yeah, that element of charm, definitely. I mean, it's quite clear that you're passionate about what you do. You know
Yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean? It's
That's great, man. What I was gonna ask you like uh what have you like been like learning recently in like your like so you just finished a big project and I think that's always that a wicked time to like look back. Like what
mm,
did you learn from it?
Funnily enough, I always up until about 2 years ago, I always thought I would never ever finish an album because my output wasn't great. I used to kind of really struggle with the technical side of things. I'd get tracks 90% done and then just like mix down anxiety, right?
Yeah.
And at one point I was probably averaging 2 tunes a year because I was really struggle with finishing them. And then I got a bit more confident. But I think when my album happened by accident, basically, I was just putting music back. And then TB said to me, "You've got an album." And I was like, "Well, that's funny because I never thought I'd finish an album. And I haven't even tried to write an album. And it's just written itself, basically, without me even thinking about it. Um, so, in terms of the process of the album, I haven't learned anything. But what I have learned is um, I've learned to recognize when I'm feeling creative and when I'm not, and to deal with that and to accept it that I go through cycles of when I'm not feeling creative, just to leave it alone. Whereas I used to force it, those days when, if you're not creative, you don't understand, but people talk about being in the zone. When you're in the zone, you things just write themselves, don't they? You can sit at the computer and just it seems like every single decision that you make is the right one. And it's almost like someone takes control of the reins and just does it. And then you come out of the session. Quite often I've listened to tracks that I've finished before and I've been like, I don't even know how I did that. Like, did I do that?
Yeah.
You must have got that. Um, and then other times you sit at the computer and you're not feeling it. And you can try and try and try and you do all the things that you'd normally do, and it just doesn't happen and you
Yeah.
get so frustrated, you get depressed, you feel like you're not worthy. Um, what I've taught myself is when I'm like that, just leave it alone, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's just it's a cycle, and
Man,
sometimes
just quick. Honestly, like I make a lot of tunes with Pete, like Inner Terrain,
yeah,
and like sometimes like we just text each other the recycle emoji, like the little
yeah,
green arrows,
yeah,
like in
yeah,
a
yeah,
like a
yeah,
little
yeah,
triangle, because of exactly what you've just said. And when you said, "Oh, it's just a cycle," like
yeah.
we've got to this point where we're like just ask, I'll ask him, Pete, is everything I'm doing awful? And he'd be like, no.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, good. I just needed to check because I feel
Yeah.
like everything I'm doing is terrible. And then there'll be a point where it's like, oh, like on top of the world. So I
Yeah.
feel like now, slowly, those like ebbs and flows they're not gone ever, but they're
No,
just getting slightly shallower
really,
rather
that's
than,
interesting.
yeah,
Right.
when I was younger, it was like
Yeah,
crazy high peaks and then like debilitating lows. And now it's
debilitating.
just, yeah, now it's just like great and terrible.
Yeah,
Whereas, but
yeah,
so like, it's like sort of like a compressed a wave almost of like
yeah.
happiness, but just recognizing that, hey, things come around in cycles.
And it's
So when I heard you
okay.
say that, I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the thing is, like, there was a time, especially when I used to be on Viper with a guy called Damien. When I was in those cycles of not being creative, I would really give myself a hard time, and I'll kind of be like, "You've lost it. it's not there anymore. You can't do it, etc. And it's really stupid, but you see a lot of producers talk about like their creative spot, these creative zones that they get in.
Yeah,
And the way I've kind of dealt with, well, I've come to accept it, and it actually feels like I'm two different people. And I'm like, one minute I'm Ollie, the dad, who's at home doing all that stuff, and I'm just that person. And then I'm this artist. And when I'm in artist mode, I am full blown, into it, and everything goes well. And I've kind of learned to just shut off when I'm like when it's not happening. Because some people say, "Oh yeah, do sound design and all that kind of stuff and hunt for samples." But I find that when you're not actually in the zone and you're not feeling for it, it's like just shut off completely, because sometimes searching for samples and sound design can be a chore and it's not very inspiring. So
yeah,
I just think I can close that person and then just be that person for a bit and then go back. And that is
yeah.
actually it's brought me peace. If that sounds a bit cheesy,
No, fair
but
enough.
it has because I'm not giving myself a hard time anymore. I'm not beating
Yeah,
myself up. I understand I've just got to be patient. I'm going through one now, to be fair. I'm not feeling creative at the minute, but I have just got loads of music done.
yeah,
Um, and now I'm just kind of like, I'm just gonna do something else. And I'm kind of, I get up in the morning and I do some organizing on my laptop and stuff like that, but I'm not actually making anything. Um,
yeah,
it works.
yeah. That's really interesting. I think, to be honest, I feel, and this is really me personally, but I feel a little bit different to that. Like, I write an idea almost every single day, as like,
Mm,
the only
yeah,
if there's like a real thing stopping me, will I not write something. But what I've come to accept is most of that is going to be appalling.
yeah, okay.
And a lot of the time I show up and I've got to be honest, I don't feel like writing music at all.
Mm,
Like I'll just sit there and I'm like, I don't even know what I'm gonna do today. And I'll just like play around and I'll be like, sometimes I'll just be like, all of this is terrible. Bounce it out, save it, back it up.
yeah,
That was fine.
mm,
Next day, load up a tune. I got no ideas here. This is nothing. Bounce it out. And I just do this thing where I'll just keep making ideas, keep making ideas, keep making ideas. And in the moment, I'm like, this is all terrible. Like I'm not
yeah,
even feeling it, not doing anything. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 months later, I listen back. I'm like, this idea is amazing.
yeah,
Then the ideas that I thought were killer, I listen back, I'll be like, oh, this idea is the worst thing I've ever heard.
yeah,
So what I realized is, and I learned this from a podcast as well. I sound like a broken record, but like you can't really super trust that. I don't, and this is me personally again, like my own feelings. Like
right,
I'm like, because like one day, like I'll love a tune, the next day I'll hate a tune, and like if it was someone else's music, like say if it was like a great, like an incredible record, like someone else's tune, I'd be like, oh, I'm just not in the mood for that tune today.
yeah,
I
yeah,
wouldn't blame the music, but when
mm,
it's mine, oh, I'd be like, I'm rubbish. The music's rubbish. Everything. So it's really weird how it's like this kind of I have this double standard for myself. So I'm like, if I lose the habit of sitting down, I think I'll really struggle to sit down again and write music.
yeah,
So for
yeah,
me, I needed to craft like the habit of like just showing up and
yeah.
doing the thing. So that's why I really like
So,
what you
so
said
yeah,
about
so,
you
so yeah,
still.
we're quite different then. But I
Yeah,
mean, I've got a question. So, out of these ideas, how many of them do you actually finish that you'd say is a finished track that you don't like? Do you finish many tracks that you go back and say, actually finished?
yeah.
I'm I'm not sure about that. I don't want to release it.
Uh, we actually, weirdly, me and Pete in the terrain did an experiment.
Right.
We sat down and we were like, right, we're gonna write 100 tunes.
Mm.
And this was just like drafts, ideas,
Yeah.
16 bar loops.
Yeah.
Some of them were full tunes,
I
but
remember.
as
I
much
remember
as
when you're doing that. Yeah.
yeah, as much as we possibly could,
Mm.
we wrote full tunes, you know. And we just go back. And I think we actually worked it out like what got signed, what we thought was good enough was about 25% of the music.
Really.
Yeah, so like some on like a really good spell, like maybe like 30% of it, 40% of it is like good, but we weren't aiming for good. We were aiming for like
Yeah.
what music of this can be like
Mm.
tracks that like we just cannot get rid of. Like, and we were ruthless and brutal.
Yeah.
And then it only ended up that being at about at the end of it, like 10% was good enough
Right.
for like the labels we were aiming for and stuff like that. So it was a really like it was really fun because like it sounds like what, but like trust me, a lot of those ideas were absolute trash,
Well,
and
the
that's
reason
fine.
the reason why I ask is something that you said before, and it kind of it comes back to like you filtering quality control, or you feel like you're filtering it. And I I think that I've released about 99% of the music that I've ever made
Wow.
that I've finished. And that
I,
that is that is because if my heart's not completely in it and I'm making it and I have anything at all that's like I'm unsure of this, I cannot progress with it. There's just this thing that doesn't let me. And it's really interesting because what you said resonates with I think a lot of other people. Like I see artists saying, "Yeah, I finished this tune today and another one today, and but only like one of them will probably come out." And I'm like, I almost admire people that can finish tunes that they're not completely into, because sometimes they'll
mm,
be sometimes they'll be the ones that are massive, you know,
yeah.
because just because you don't like something doesn't mean that everyone else isn't. But I just can't finish a track. If there's anything there that I'm like, I'm not really that into it, I'm just that's it. It's shelved and it won't get touched again, which is kind of a good thing because I save time, because I end up pretty much releasing nearly every track that I make that I
Nice.
finish, but there's probably stuff in there that I don't finish that is probably what other people would think is really good. I mean, some are going to be shockers, which I know they are, but so maybe some would actually slip through, um,
Yeah.
because I'm telling myself, nah, at an early
Yeah.
stage rather than progressing.
I do. Yeah, I hear you. The thing that I'm thinking when I'm doing that is that like for me, I don't know, there's like different muscles for like different stages. So
Yeah.
like the creating tunes, you need to flex that muscle like
Mm,
frequently. Arranging, you need to like flex that muscle of like being able
mm.
to arrange a tune. And then like it's a skill finishing a tune, like
Yeah.
so I want to be practicing that bit of the skill like
Yeah, I get you.
as frequently as I'm practicing starting
Yeah.
and as frequency as I'm practicing arranging and sound design so that I
Mm,
keep all of those like elements like rolling because
mm.
sometimes it's so easy to think like you could be so good at starting tunes and then like I don't know like let's say like a month or 2 months goes by and you're like man I haven't actually arranged a tune in a long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
I've just got like
Yeah.
15 really great kick drums or
Yeah.
something like
Yeah.
that. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So like that's why I'm always like, even if this isn't going anywhere, the
Mm,
point of me finishing this is skill development rather than like anything
yeah.
to do with tunes. Because like I was saying before, really what I'm trying to do is like, I don't know, just do the best I can with what I've got, and so that
Yeah.
means I want to develop all of those bits. So that's why I'll be like deliberately, purposefully finishing tunes
Yeah.
that
Because
I know aren't
yeah.
great because I'm going to get ideas for when I do need it and the tune is right and I do want to do that. That I'm like, okay, I've got all of these things to draw on from those 10 tunes that didn't work.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I get
and
what you're
like
saying.
I can, and then also once you've finished something, like it's much easier to look back and go, what can I learn from this to improve rather than unfinished stuff, kind of like, I don't
Yeah.
know, it doesn't really give you that same ability to
Mm.
reflect for me,
Yeah.
so
It
that's what I
might
think.
it might also boil down to kind of time as well, because I think I'm always super conscious that I've only got a certain amount of time and
Yeah.
I want to make the most of it. But also, everyone's different, and everyone has their different
Yeah.
strengths. Like I think one of my strengths is actually arranging. It doesn't give me too much bother, but you speak to other people that have the so technically gifted, mix downs can like they just it's not a thing. sound design, were amazing. Yet when it comes to actually pasting out a track, they're like, and finishing it, they're just like, I don't know how to do it. They really struggle,
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
everyone's different.
Yeah.
It's like I mean, I'm slightly going off course here, but I used to have a friend, and he played the guitar. Like I play, you play as well, don't you? A little bit. Do you
I
play the
used to
guitar a little
play
bit?
drums a lot,
Right,
but not
drums.
for many years. So if you made me play drums now, it'd be awful.
Yeah. And I used to, so I had this mate, and he was trying to learn how to play the guitar, and the bit that he found hard was strumming the guitar rather than the
Yeah,
chords. And I just that blew me away because I'm like, that is the bit that to me comes second nature. It's the chords
yeah,
that are really hard. Yeah, he could do all the chords, but strumming in time, he just
yeah.
couldn't. So it's kind of like everyone's brain works in different ways, isn't it?
And that's the beauty of it all. And like what works for me might not work for anybody else, and that's fine. And that's also part of it, is
Mm,
finding like your journey, like with
mm.
like being creative. And I think that's lovely. And one thing I've been reading recently is about that Rick Rubin book, which is
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. I've seen.
yeah, I've been checking that
How are you
out, and
getting
that's
on with
pretty
that?
cool. Yeah, okay, fine. I'm about halfway. It's nice to just drop in, drop out of it.
Yeah. Have you
But I'm like
taken
that
much
kind of,
from that?
yeah, a few bits. It's just like it's really kind of what we've been saying here, like being open to like creative things and being like ready to like be that person who like sees the creative opportunity in the thing and stuff like that. So it's
Yeah,
really
yeah,
like it's
yeah,
definitely
yeah.
worth checking out if you can
Yeah,
grab a copy.
yeah,
So
I'll have a look at that.
yeah,
We've got 6 minutes left, so we'll start wrapping it up. But
yeah, great.
I enjoyed it. We'll have to do it again. We'll definitely have to do it again.
Anytime.
Yeah. I think it's really nice as well for people like because obviously I'll put this on the subtitles, YouTube and stuff. And I think it's just nice for people to see an open, honest conversation about production and hear the struggles and
Yeah,
because at the end of the day, we all struggle and like
yeah,
ultimately we are all different, so we all have our different strengths and
yeah,
I think there'll be like young producers that listen and kind of appreciate, you know, the honesty and stuff.
yeah.
So
You can put the tagline 75% of Reckless's tunes are rubbish.
yeah. Yeah, and I
I'm
finish all
happy with
mine.
that.
I finish all mine. Not showing off or anything there. That's but yeah, but some of the ones that I start are absolute shockers. You know those ones where you go back and you're like, how did I even get past like the riff in this tune? You're like that. What was I thinking? Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, um, just before we sign off, like, what have you got in the pipeline? Because obviously you've done. I'm pretty sure you've got another album, right, in the making. Can you say about that or
Yeah, yeah. So I got the LP with
yeah.
Dispatch.
Yeah, that's
So that's pretty
Dispatch. Yeah.
cool.
How many tracks are on there?
Um, uh, it's like it's maybe like 14 will be on like the main release, and
Yeah.
then if you go on their Bandcamp, there'll be like a couple of extra ones at the
Yeah.
end.
Wicked.
So that was cool.
Yeah.
Then I like on my own little thing, like I'm doing like this time signature series.
Yeah.
So I'm just waiting for the second album for that to be mastered as well. So that's really
Wicked.
exciting.
Yeah.
Very,
Wicked.
very thankful for that one.
Yeah.
And then I got like we're just me and in the terrain, we've got like a whole bunch of i- um like tunes lined up, so that's pretty nice. And then yeah, I think coming out soon with Collective on Sofa Sound.
I was
So
going
that's
to
pretty
mention them
cool.
quickly. We've only got 3 minutes left, but also you got a Sofa Sound release coming out. Yeah. I speak to Karim. Um,
Yeah,
like we kind of message occasionally, and because he loved the Juggernaut and well they loved it
nice.
and I sent them my album and we've been talking about doing a collab actually, but they're kind of like, yeah, just we want to get you up in the studio and I'm like, for me, I live in Devon and it's just trying to plan a day up with three
Yeah,
kids is not the easiest around work, but
yeah,
eventually I'll get in the studio with those guys as well. But they're really nice guys, and you're
yeah,
really good friends
definitely.
with them, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah, we meet up relatively frequently now, so
Yeah.
that's been really nice. And
Yeah.
if you do make sure you like do one where you can do like a couple of days trip, and we'll make sure we get in the studio as well.
Definitely,
You know?
definitely, we'll
Yeah,
have to do that. We'll have to do that. So you've got
yeah,
that, and
nice.
the inner terrain stuff. Are you hoping that that's going to come out on Metalheads? Because you guys obviously you had your Metalheads release before, and
Yeah. Well, Pete just had a single
yeah,
with Heads,
I
and
must
then
have missed
we've got
that. I missed that. I
yeah,
didn't see that. Maybe
we,
I'll check that out.
and then we've got our next EP that's all signed up for Heads, so that's cool.
Wicked, wicked.
And
Right, you're
then
gonna have to send me a little,
yeah, oh yeah, yeah,
a
yeah.
little
Always, you're
care
always
package.
welcome. Yeah, I'll send you the tunes. And then me and my pal Richie Nacrobia, we've been writing a lot of music. We meet up alternate Tuesdays and
Okay,
write tunes. So that's really nice.
wicked.
Yeah, and they're super exciting, like really different stuff, very experimental. But what about yourself?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've got obviously my album's still yet to come out.
Amazing.
I started off with what was meant to be like a couple of tracks coming on the source, but now I've got about 8 tunes, I think, I'll finish for them guys.
Amazing.
Well, not I say finished, I mean the ideas are there, but I've still got to, still got to finish them off properly. And then I've got an exciting remix coming out on I don't even know if I'm allowed to say because it's a it's a TB classic that I've done.
Yeah,
Um,
don't get yourself in trouble.
yeah, yeah. And
Something exciting though.
yeah, and then I spoke to you, I've been doing a load of slower stuff. So I'm kind of putting tracks back for potentially like an album at the 140 around the 140 speed. I've been doing like some sci-fi garage stuff,
Nice.
kind of that sci-fi vibe that I do, but at garage pace. And I really enjoy doing that. So yeah,
Yeah, amazing.
yeah. So
And loads of collabs to finish with Reckless as well.
yes, yeah, mate, I've got so many collabs on. I've got collabs. I think I've got with you, um, Hydro, Hydro and War, Myth. Um, yeah, yeah.
Amazing.
I've got loads in the pipeline, but it's just finishing them off. Right, we've got less than a minute. So, mate, it was really good catching up with you. Oh yeah, I was
Amazing.
going to
Thank
ask
you.
you actually. I'll cut this bit out, but I was going to ask. I would love to remix one of your tracks from the Ocean and Fire EP at some point if
Definitely.
you are happy for me to do that.
Yeah, no stress, definitely.
Man, I'd love to do that because I love that whole EP. It's amazing.
Yeah, man, great. We'll catch up soon.
Wishing you the best, mate. It's really good to see your face and yeah,
You
good luck
too.
and send me some tunes.
Yeah, we'll do. Nice
Yeah,
one. See you
wicked, Matt.
later.
I'll catch you
All
soon,
right.
buddy. Bye bye.
Cheers. Bye. Bye.